everyone, and welcome back once again to QuipScope. It's the show where we take a look at brand new video games and give our first impressions about them. My name is Peter.
And my name is Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Hello.
It was a big weekend for Peter-related video games this weekend just gone. But you're here, in fact, to talk to us about Star Wars Squadrons, are you not?
I certainly am. This will be a slightly different QuipScope in that we've both actually had time to play it.
Yeah.
I've just had a little more time because I haven't also been playing Crash 4.
Exactly. I've only played an hour or so of the campaign. I've not played any multiplayer because my plus expired over lockdown. And I thought there was no point me getting any, paying for it for any more while I've not got a PS4 with me. So I've not yet renewed it, but yeah. I'm just weighing up whether this game warrants me getting it again. And at the moment, I'm unsure. I need to play a bit more, really.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can tell us a bit about that.
Before I give my thoughts on it, which you may get an inkling of how I'm feeling about the game, just by my tone of voice and hesitation.
Yeah.
Speaking generally about it, it's a dogfighting sim where you play as pilots on it's the New Republic, isn't it? That's what they're called in this game.
Yeah.
It's after the events of Star Wars Episode 6. The Empire has been defeated, but the Empire is still hanging on in some areas. And so it's you play as pilots on the side of the Empire and the New Republic Navy, or whatever it's called. And there's a campaign that's apparently about 8 hours long. I've played the first couple of missions of it. And you sort of create a character on each side, but the creation is extremely limited in that you choose a face and a voice. And you only hear your voice in occasional quips. You never see yourself in cutscenes. And so sort of you're just addressed by your call sign and not your name, because you can name yourself.
Yeah.
Just sort of in text form. So that's the basic gist. The story is so far is not that interesting, and it seems to really just the campaign serves as a training ground to get you prepared for the multiplayer. And there've been a few questions about this game, the purpose of this game, floating around it in my head. But a principal one of them being, if there's space fights in Star Wars Battlefront 2 and the other Battlefront, and they're meant to be already pretty good, why spin a whole game off it? Why do that? But then it's, right, okay, they're actually going after sort of hence the budget price, they're going after a perhaps niche audience of people who want, or they yearn for the dogfighting sims of the 90s, and the early 2000s. So was it Star Wars Squadron, I think?
Rogue
Squadron, that was the one, sorry. Yes, Rogue Squadron was a similar game, and that's who they're going after here. The whole game feels like it was built for VR.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people obviously aren't going to be playing it in VR. I have VR, I haven't played it in VR, but oh boy, there's a lot of cockpit in the way. There's a big part of me that wishes I could play it in third person so I could actually sort of see what the hell was going on, because we've got these little retro radars that were established as canon in the 60s and 70s in some films, and now we've just got little blips, and I don't know what sort of plane of existence they're on, but I'm sort of veering around trying to see them, and they're either way above me or way below me, and it's all a little hard to find out what the hell's going on. The same goes for multiplayer, which is 5v5. There's a couple of different modes. There are a few different ships you can fly in as well that are all very different from one another. But going back to how it all sort of feels like it's just designed for VR. When you're in the campaign and also in the multiplayer, actually, you can teleport around the hangar to sort of set points, and that's got VR written all over it, because you can't sort of free walk. You just teleport to set locations and look around. And in the campaign, you can quote-unquote talk to your squad mates that are just sort of stood around the hangar, and it all plays out exactly the same, where they're not really animated at all. They sort of stand there and sway from side to side, and whenever the conversation finishes, they turn to walk away from you. All of them, every time.
Yeah.
When the conversation finishes, they turn to walk away from you. And I know that I'm appreciating more and more that this is a game that is not for me. It's clearly for people who want a sort of a space dogfighting sim, but I'm just not that impressed by it, and I genuinely feel a sense of regret not only for buying it, but that I have no urge to continue playing the campaign at all. I just really, I'm not like sad or disappointed or upset, because buying it was sort of a spur of the moment thing for me, but I'm just so underwhelmed by it. Like, I really just don't care for this game at all.
That's a shame. I mean, I went into it actually with pretty low expectations, not necessarily based on the promotional stuff I'd seen, but just kind of knowing what kind of game they were going for. I think it was pretty clear to me, and I'm sure to most people ahead of time, that this really was, if anything, they wanted to make a multiplayer experience, and they tacked on a campaign, a bit like they did with Battlefront 2, to be honest. And I think that really, really comes through on the campaign. And I went in with low expectations, thinking that is what would happen, and it has happened. And I think because I went in expecting it, I've not been as disappointed, purely because I was already resigned to the fact that was going to be the case. But it does really, really feel lacking in that campaign, I think. I personally am quite enjoying the flying experience itself. You have the ability to reroute your power to different parts of your ship, so you can go faster and be more maneuverable, or you can boost your shields if you're doing a big attack run on like a Star Destroyer, or you can up your weapons and so on. So I quite like that, and I think it's definitely a more intricate experience than the dogfighting in Battlefront 2 is. So I can see the difference between the two things. I see that there would be an argument, why did they make this game when you can do this in Battlefront 2? I think it's definitely more intricate, but yeah, it's clearly it was clearly designed for multiplayer, and it was clearly designed for VR, because that story mode, the quote unquote protagonist is the most placeholder, non-committal, nothing character I feel like I may have played since, I don't know, Dragon's Dogma, which had a mute protagonist. And although they do occasionally make quips, as you say, it's just, it feels so fake. Like, I don't know how. I understand that they had to get 8 different voice actors to say these things so that you had the choice of voices in your characters, but for some reason, that seems to have affected how well the dialogue integrates into missions. So people will say stuff to you, and you'll just sort of go, yes, in reply and stuff. It's really weird. I don't see how having multiple voice actors would cause that issue. I don't think there's really an excuse for how bad that has been implemented. Also, annoyingly, I take it, I mean, I've not yet tried different voices to see if they say different things, but I think they do say different things based on the sort of personality of the voice that you choose. And unfortunately for me, my Rebel pilot, I chose rookie female, and not whenever, but occasionally she'll blow up a ship and she'll go, "Wizards!" which is what Anakin, little boy Annie Kid Skywalker said in episode 1.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Why did they put that in?
I don't know. Terrible. So yeah, I don't mind the actual flying experience, and there was a little bit of me that did feel a bit like, I think some kids growing up were waiting for their letter from Hogwarts, and I think when I was growing up, I was waiting to be whisked off to the Jedi Academy or the Pilots Academy. And I went into the game knowing that, this is probably what they're trying to tap into, and I'm not going to let them do that easily. I'm not just going to say they've made a flight sim game, therefore they've ticked that box. It has to be good. And I do quite like the combination of the fact that it's in first person. There's as I say, more intricacy in your flying, and they do treat you like you're this newbie in the squadron. And I think those things combined, it does sort of, kind of scratch that itch to a certain extent. But you just look at this game and you can see what it could have been and what it isn't, and it's really in that sense is very disappointing.
Yeah. I must say I really enjoyed, and I'm assuming that this is what has spun out from that, because it was shocking that they built such a comprehensive demo for seemingly no reason. But the free VR update for the original Star Wars, the original EA Star Wars Battlefront in 2016, when did PlayStation VR come out? Whenever that came out. That demo was great. I really liked that. I really felt sort of very immersed. Being able to move your head independently up and around the cockpit and looking out the top.
Press every button.
You can press every button, and just fiddle with stuff and wreck stuff. I really like that. And I'm sure, my friend is playing it through in VR, and he's very much feeling the same way that I am about it and that we are about it. So I don't know how much it improves immersion, but certainly there's got to be something to be said for playing it in VR, because, just like some people like to play racing games, driving games, from the cockpit view, sat inside the car. But ultimately, it always feels very weird unless you're playing it in VR, because it's not natural. Because when you're driving, you can turn your head to look left and right, out the side doors, the windows and stuff, and see what's coming up. Whereas in a car driving sim, you just look directly ahead. And that's the same thing here. You're just looking directly ahead, and it all just feels a bit weird.
Definitely in a TIE fighter as well, I think is just, as you say, it's so obtrusive that being in the cockpit, I don't know who designed, probably Ralph McQuarrie or some genius of design, cinema design, but I don't know who designed TIE fighter cockpits. They're just terrible. I don't find it so bad in an X-wing. I think there's sort of enough room to kind of see, but those Imperial cockpits are not good, and being able to move your head around and kind of change your angle would be a lot better.
And that's not to say the flying is bad. As you said, the adjusting of the different power setups to shields or speed or attack, I do like that. I do like that element of tactics. But I went into multiplayer and I just got absolutely mulched. I don't want to touch it. I'd get a kill, but the focus I was having to dedicate to going after someone would just leave me completely open to attack, and I would just die. And the people we were up against weren't dying that often and were getting a lot of kills. So clearly, this game is for someone, and people are good at it, and people will enjoy it. But I think the problem is that with a lower price point and the Star Wars branding, a lot of people, I think, are going to be jumping into this game expecting it to be bigger or different than what it is. And it is also worth bearing in mind that, of course, it does have that budget price point. So do we cut it slack because it's cheaper? I don't think so, because it's not so much that it's lacking content, it's that it's the stuff that's there isn't all that brilliant, and that is not befitting. You don't charge less for something that's bad, or you do, I suppose, but that's not it's not how you should be making your games. You should charge less if they're smaller.
I would say the fact that it's the price it is, it doesn't make it better, or it doesn't make me look at it and go, oh well, for that price, that's pretty good then. It just means that, like, I'm just glad they didn't release it at full price. Otherwise, this would have been a much more disappointing experience. I don't think I don't think you play that game and then think, oh, but it was this price, therefore I'm not as disappointed. I think it's they made the decision they had to. I think.
You're gonna get a little Porg trinket for the cockpit of your fighter.
Yeah, I'd like. That's the other thing as well. I saw this ahead of time before the game came out, that you can get all these, in-game unlockables based on glory. I think is the in-game currency, and it just seems like clutter to me. Like most of it, a lot of it is proper like tat as well. It's like it's Porgs and Ewoks and stuff like that, and even the stuff that's a bit more cool in its design just seems to me like would get in the way. Also, and admittedly, I've not been through all the different ship models yet, and maybe this is available, but you get things. One of the things you can get for your cockpit is like something that dangles down, like from above, so you can have like a kyber crystal or a tooth or something like that. I've not seen yet the option to get Han Solo's golden dice, and surely that seems like an obvious choice.
Man.
But maybe in one of the other ships you can get that. I've only looked in the X-Wing. But man, that seems like they've really missed an obvious idea for a dangly thing.
It's probably a pre-order incentive somewhere.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think we're in agreement that it's fundamentally a fine game and it's well made, but it's just pretty underwhelming. I have as I said, no desire to play any more of it. I'm just not that fussed by it. It's left no impression on me whatsoever.
One thing that I was thinking this morning actually is that, I think you're right that they're trying to tap into the kind of Rogue Squadron era and that sort of fandom. I think hence the name really. But those games, I think most of the missions that you did were in atmosphere. They were like on planets, so you would go to Yavin and Tatooine and Hoth and stuff.
Okay.
And I mean, as I say, I've only played a couple of hours myself of the campaign, but from everything I've seen, all the trailer material, all the screenshots and stuff, I've not seen a single bit of like planet-based flying. And I think if they did that, that would add a whole load of variety and interest to the thing. Like, that engine is, I don't think the characters look great, but I think the world looks pretty good. And, it would be really nice to fly around recognizable locations in Star Wars, but it's all just up in space. I'm sure there'll be like space stations at some point, but, that's not the same as like going through Beggar's Canyon back home or whatever. So
yeah, it is an awful lot
as well.
Of big expanses of nothing. I know that's the whole point of space, but attack this, follow this, scan this, protect this.
Oh yeah, that's one other thing I want to say as well. Why does it let me lock onto my allies? That really annoys me.
That's especially confusing when it tells you to follow them, and then they when you're not in, when you're just sort of flying around, they sort of follow you in formation.
Yeah.
So I had a few times where I was locking onto my ally to follow them, and then I had another objective, but it hadn't updated yet, and my ally just kept veering off to the left to try and fly in formation with me as I was trying to follow them, and they were just going in circles. I was like, what is happening?
I guess, again, I've only played a little bit, and I've not tried other classes, if you like, and maybe there's some sort of support, like more support-based class that the reason you need to be able to lock onto your friendlies is that you can maybe shoot like supply crates at them and stuff in multiplayer, but at least in like single player, don't make me be able to lock onto my allies, because I just found that very confusing at first, and it took me a while to realize, especially if someone's off in the distance, if you get into a big dogfight and everyone splits, breaks formation, you can go off chasing a TIE fighter one way, and then when you turn around, all you can really make out is like some distant grey-coloured pips. And I was like targeting some of them, thinking, oh, there's another target, and then it would take me a minute to go, oh wait, no, if they don't have a little red dot on the target, then it's a friendly. But it just seems a bit counterintuitive. It goes against like all the training and muscle memory and kind of the precedent set by most other dogfighting games, I guess, is my problem there. I just think it's a very strange thing to allow you to do. Or that there should be like maybe two different target reticles on your screen. Like if they wanted to make it so you could target a friendly as well, then sure, let me be able to do that, but give it a big green thing, not literally the same color targeting system as an enemy one. So yeah, bit strange. Well, Star Wars Squadrons, more like Star Wars Squadrons, as in, God, not again, another sort of half-baked campaign.
Yeah. Star Wars Squadrons, more like Star Wars Squad Wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wrong'uns.
Wrong Star Wars wrong-uns. Yeah, it's not terrible, but it's
no,
not great
it's
at
not.
all.
It's not terrible. It just, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought, £30 price point, 35 quid price point. I thought, well, this game won't have a great deal in it, but it might still be really good.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's actually not got a lot in it, and it's also not very good. So Double whammy from EA there.
Oh dear.
Okay, we'll see you next time, everybody.
We will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.